You are tuned or you are viewing us live from the London Mindfulness Meditation Center. So every day we go live at 6:30 with our evening religious observances, and especially allowing devotees or congregation to sponsor and participate and actively engage in the religious observances, especially during this arranged retreat time. So the first half was dedicated for worship and chanting, and now this session is to do with meditation. As always, every Thursday we go live at 7 o'clock with basic practice or helping you to understand mindfulness and develop mindfulness through the basic practices so that you can enhance and deepen your practice, and also to help you practice daily. So as we all know, mind is a very subtle, very difficult to understand, and the only way we can understand is generating awareness or generating mindfulness, so that the pursuit in any case, or the understanding of what we call the truth or as it is, will be possible. So the nature of the mind is always, or the habit of the mind is always to engage with something. And engaging with something, whether it is good or bad, again is from the values that we put, but engaging with something is something, if we are not mindful, will happen automatically, or let me just use the word unconsciously sometimes. The tendency that we develop sometimes make us unaware of the way the mind works, and most of the time we just actually fail to grasp the moment that it was happening. So we have to develop skills or be skillful in trying to direct the mind to perhaps positive things. The tendency is always to engage with something, and it might sometimes engage with something or be nurtured with something that is harmful. And we deeply understand that the attachments that we have, the pursuit of engagement in trying to please the body or the senses, is something which we sometimes need not be taught. We don't need to teach someone to engage in something that they please. But developing mindfulness and trying to divert it to skillful and positive or good things does require greater effort. So hence, people sit down and meditate is trying to train their mind, or to actually transform their mind, or develop these skills where we do need to make a great effort. It doesn't happen subconsciously as it does when it is to do with things that it pleases. So imagine a small baby or toddler, it always likes to do certain things. And from one after the other, it looks for excitement and entertainment. But a watchful mother or a watchful parent will always direct the toddler with something, or will use that moment for positiveness. So if a toddler had a scissor, So a mindful person or mother or parent will take the scissor off quickly and maybe give a small ball or something nice to play with. So that is how our mind is. Sometimes it always engages with something, and deeply we do know that this engagement is always nurtured by, shall I say, greed or attachment. And when we are attached to a particular thought or an idea, it becomes worse. Now, if the body was just there is no engagement. So, for example, where there is a lack of awareness, the pair of eyes is not going to look for things. It is the mind that is looking for things. So the pair of eyes will be wide open but does not seek anything. It just becomes the doorway for the mind to engage with the things externally, the conditioning things. So the thought arising is where we get attached to. So having just for example, even the ears, we don't even have to make any effort for the ears to open or close. It's always widely open. So these ears, sounds are always entering my ears. But the moment I actually get hooked into a particular sound, then I pursue that. The moment I dislike a particular sound, I feel dissatisfied. Or the moment I actually like a sound, and I always make that a measuring criteria to dislike the other. And you can see how this attachment is growing deep inside, which becomes the reference point. And I have been using the word called expectation. So we cling on to this formation, or we cling on to this thought that has arisen. So the objects that entered the mind through senses, we cling on to that particular experience, and that becomes the reference point always. Sankappa raga. So we actually hook on to that idea, and whenever that is being referred to, and if it doesn't meet the criteria, we always end up with dissatisfaction. We always end up with dissatisfaction. And this is where we get hooked into it. This is where we get troubled as well, because we don't like that dissatisfaction. So we always try to turn this dissatisfaction upside down to look for happiness again. So imagine you bought something new and you're very happy with that, and you keep on pleasing yourself with that item, maybe a phone or a computer, whatever it is, materialistic. And most of the time, when we start cherishing that as sentimentally or even unconsciously, anything happening to that is always leading to dissatisfaction. And that is where the problem is. So expectation, or the standards not being met. So we have to try to realize this day in, day out, because most of the time these things happen not in your sitting time, but even it's outside from the time you wake up to the time you sleep. Your mind is always churning information and always being selective and judging what is good and what is bad. So when I said earlier we need effort to divert into positive or goodness, is because there can be a tendency where deep inside we have attachments and dissatisfaction always coming to the forefront and making the judgmental selection. And when we always bring this judgmental selection, maybe from labeling, maybe from filtering with your knowledge, maybe from filtering with your experiences, good memories, bad memories, they always become quite a reference point where we always end up with something not pleasing. because we fail to understand that even these thought processes are simply a byproduct. That thought came into you because of the conditions that were there then. But we still have not freed ourselves from that thought process. We still have not freed ourselves from that thinking or from that memory. And it is widely understood when you use the word emotion. And when that emotion comes, we again being controlled by it. So mindfulness is quite a very good tool, very good skill to divert to positive. So we have to, because when you are mindful that there is this referencing going on and you are coming to conclusive judgment with the experiences, with the things that you have, we have to be mindful to disconnect from that referencing, disconnect from that expectation bar that you have, disconnect from yourself, from the conditions that you build up when we see, hear, sense, feel, touch, even think. So it is quite important to see how this works deep inside. Only a mindful person will be able to see this. A person who is always tuned into pleasing that thought or meeting that reference point of the thinking, sankappa, is always consciously or unconsciously trying to entertain or seek that criteria. So a mindful person will see this as it happens. It's not running away from this. It can be a sad moment, it can be a happy moment. When it is happy, we try to cherish it, and when it doesn't last long, we feel sad again. Like the item that you bought it. When you fail to understand that it is impermanent, like a new phone you buy, you're happy. That happiness doesn't stay with you, but anything happening to it will stay with you forever sometimes. Say, for example, you broke that phone, and that dissatisfaction stays with you for a month or two sometimes. So we fail to understand that things are impermanent. So therefore we always seek some sort of something that we have deep within, seeing that there is this continuity or there is this permanent experiencing that we are looking for, which will always be a delusion. Some of us we use the word self or identity with it. The thing that you associate with experiences as someone experiencing, and that was created by yourself. That identity is created by yourself. So a mindful person will slowly be able to untie those knots or those tangles. Will be very, what we call, will be aware of the arising of those thoughts. And when the thoughts arise, a mindful person will learn how to not involve with it, but disconnect with it. And that disconnection is not happening because of anger or something else, but because you are not showering or nurturing with your personal information or personal emotions. You disconnect with those experiences. We don't get involved with conditions in your mind. You have to see it in its own way. We have to hear it in its own way. We have to taste it in its own way. We have to feel it in its own way. And similarly with the smell it in its own way. And those are the five senses. But think about the thought process as well. When there is happy feeling, we sometimes wish that happiness all the time. See, because we connected with it in a different way. We connected with it with an emotion. or some sort of value. And when there is sadness, we don't like it. As much as when you eat something, when you taste it, you want to eat more. When there is something bitter or something taste that you don't like, then we reject it quickly. So there is a bit of that interaction is a bit of emotion involved with it, with anger and with greed or attachment and dissatisfaction involved. Similarly with the thoughts, we fail to actually apply this. When there is happiness, we want to see the continuity of it. Fair enough, it's a good thing, but as I said earlier, the happiness doesn't last longer. So what happens when the phone breaks? You feel sad, and that sadness might stay with you for a day, 2, 3 months, years. Similarly with people's mistakes, that memory point, or people's sadness or incidents in life, they become some crucial reference point where we always pops up like a virus, or pops up like some sort of referencing. And always when you speak with the person, when you see a photo of the person, those start to come up and start pulling you. And the more you add your stories to it, you feel more dissatisfied and anger. So as much as there is like that is growing within oneself in certain circumstances, when there is sadness, when there is some sort of emotion, anger, hate, jealousy, if you don't see it arise, you get involved with it in such a way that it starts being cherished as something good. It's like letting the toddler play with the scissor. So a mindful person will take the scissor out, put it away, maybe engage or divert it into good thinking, if not completely ignore it or disconnect with it. You have to learn how to do that. As much as we learn how to disconnect, sometimes we have to divert it into positive side, as we take away the scissor from the toddler and give a ball to play with. And that is how the mind is. It is always looking for things, and if you're not skillful enough to divert it into good things, then you get involved with it in such a way that you then sometimes will then develop fear, anxiety. You can even use the word depression, because that involvement is, you get so much involved that you can't slowly unpack or untangle it. Sometimes fear starts when the memories hit us. There's so much fear when certain emotions come in. We feel so much pressure. We feel so much suffocated. And especially with the negative emotions, we can use the word, when we get involved, we germinate our mind. This contamination of the mind is unhealthy, and every time that becomes the filtering point next, unless you learn how to disconnect with it. The bar that I said earlier is always risen now. You add something, it always rises. You add something to it, it always rises. So next time you see the photo again, next time you hear that sound, or you hear that, you see some sort of referencing, it always rises. And we hook onto this. Sankapraga Purisasa, we hook onto this. And the more we hook onto this, the more problems we create for ourselves, for our peace of mind. So we have to transform and train the mind to disconnect or to divert to positive thinking. And the only way you can do that is be mindful of its arising. Be mindful when it is happening. If a goalkeeper is not mindful, the ball will hit him or her, or go into the goal post. A mindful person will see it arising, and when the arising is seen, then only you can see the presence of it. Otherwise, as I said, the tendency of the mind is it gets involved unconsciously, and then when it is at the boiling point, then only we'll realize when it has affected your peace of mind, like the phone dropping and affected your peace of mind for a couple of months, or affected into your physical sense, even when you actually feel too tired, or when you are angry, you can see how your body is. So it is this sensual engagement with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. And mindfulness is such an important and necessary tool that's key to happiness. Key to your, as much as it is key to your success, it is also key to your state of mind, and in most cases we can use the word peace of mind. Where there is no happiness, where there is no mindfulness, the peace of mind will not be there, because peace of mind or happiness is not in the materialistic things that we pursue, not in the objects that we encounter through our senses. Happiness is not in what you see. Happiness is not in what you hear. Happiness is not in what you taste, what you smell, what you feel, even what you think. Happiness is something beyond that. The absence of the expectations, and the absence of the pursuing of this continuity of the pleasures, the absence of being able to disconnect so that we don't develop this dissatisfaction. So we have to train our mind to think in this way. And training your mind to think in this way is to develop mindfulness. When we develop mindfulness, so it doesn't matter, because mind is susceptible for any sort of thoughts. Just be aware of it. Don't get involved with it. Don't get involved with what you hear. Don't get involved with what you see. Don't get involved with what you think even. Thoughts come to you. As soon as you close your eyes, so many thoughts will come. That's the nature of the mind. It's okay. Be mindful of its presence. Don't get involved with it. Simply identify it and let it go. And this is what we practice in this, because breathing itself is not meditation, but we use that breathing, which we are going to do. If you're new, we use that breathing to actually train our mind to be at one point. It's like a very fidgety and naughty person or child, if I put it, it's trying to make the child stay on this one seat. You put it, will run away. We'll look for something. You again go and bring the child back, and you place him or her on the chair. We'll run away to get something, again come back to the chair. So mind is like that. As soon as you want it to stay at one point, it will start showing its colors, the natures. It's such, you want to see, just tell the mind to watch the breath, but it will watch for a couple of seconds and completely again start wandering and seeking that excitement or entertainment. This monkey mind is always going from sense to sense, and is looking for simple distractions to get attracted to. Sound slowly will go there. Thinking, memories popping up. When you take a couple of minutes to close your eyes, sometimes what happened during the day will start popping up, and then we'll start planning or we'll start trying to sort out the stories or the incidents in our head. So we always start churning those ideas. And you have to see this. Sometimes I see this half an hour sitting as a moment where we free ourselves from everything. Imagine we have a drip of water falling from a tap. You hold a sponge. The sponge can hold to a certain amount. And you have to take the sponge and squeeze it so that it can hold more. So the stability of the mind also is like that. The more it is wandering and the more it is looking for excitement and entertainment, the more we get drained with the energy. You feel that and we use the word stress for that. When you feel the stress, when you feel restlessness, That is when the sponge is overflowing and then it starts dripping from the bottom. So a couple of minutes of sitting, like 10 to 15 to half an hour a day, is that squeezing moment, so you can actually have more water, you can contain more water, so you can contain more fluid, develop more mindfulness, so that you don't actually drain yourself with energy, not just physical but mental. So it's quite interesting to see how a person who actually can be mindful and the way they function, because there is so much serene, there's so much happiness in there. Why? Because we are not expecting. So we're training the mind to free itself from all the things. As I said, don't let the mind get involved with the conditioning things that they see or hear or sense or touch or feel or even think. We have to be mindful of both sides. If you see, okay, this is this, so you note it. When you identify it, then you have the ability to disconnect, because you've seen it. You've seen the presence of it. If you don't see it come, then you actually are in the thought, you are caught up in the waves already. You're gone, the ball has gone to the goalpost. So let's develop this skill of mindfulness by paying attention to something that is quite natural, which is breathing. But remember, anything can be a meditation object. Your thinking, your worrying, your anxiety, your planning, sadness, happiness, greed, passion, lust, anger, anything can be a meditation object. What is the mind doing at that particular moment? Think about it. What is the mind doing? Is the mind cooking the point, cooking the idea, cooking the emotion? Even though you know it is harmful, are you cooking it in your head? Simply put it in the bin, let it go. When you see something, you know the natures of it. You forget. One, you forget it is impermanent. Two, you forget that it is a byproduct, it's a conditioned thing. And three, when you know the dangers of it by getting involved, like worry or stress or anxiety or anger, why get involved with it? Bin it, discard it. But you can only discard it as much as the goalkeeper can catch the ball when you see and the angle and everything and the way it is coming. So when you identify it, you know what it is, so you then discard it. So recognize what it is, release, let it go, and then come back. As you bring the child to the seat, come back to your sitting posture, come back to your breathing. The mind can travel, go wherever it wants. End of the day, you have to come back home, which is your breathing in this meditation. So remember these things, okay? Just remember to identify what it is. You can identify as in channels: seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, touching, smelling, so those 5 channels. And thinking or planning and whatever happens in the mind. So whatever you identify, note it. Train your mind to see it first. That acknowledgement is important. Then only you can unpick it and discard in the bin. So we can, otherwise you are caught in the waves. You already get involved with it. Okay, so let's try meditating. So we have to develop a good posture. Excuse me. The sitting posture is really important. That is because if you are resting, If your arms are resting, you're on a chair or sofa, so make sure you don't rest. It might develop your body, not just your body into lethargic point, but also your mind. So upright body, so you can breathe in properly, so straight body. So when you fix your body like this, as long as it is balanced, so don't even lean your back unless you have a real physical difficulty. Don't lean your back. Okay, so sit straight. And then it's always nice to put your right hand on your left palm, like the Buddha is hidden by flowers, but like that, so that the tendency that your fingers can start looking for things, so fiddling, so you stop that by consciously putting an effort to put your hand like this. And then you place them on your lap. And eyes gently closed. So you have to gently close your eyes. So if you're on a chair or a stool or a sofa, make sure your feet are firm on the ground so that you avoid swaying your legs. So if you're sitting cross-legged, it's fine. So just stay as you are. Okay? So now just first of all, just reflect on your sitting posture with your eyes closed. Just look at your body and the way it is posed. As much you are thankful and grateful for the good health that you have and your ability to commit to this. Praise yourself that you are able to commit, and then gradually look into the way you are sitting. Perhaps a quick scan from your feet to your head. And when we scan, we are actually observing the stillness in the body. That stillness in the body shows how things can be still in the mind as well. You can observe the body with the bends and the touches and the sensation when you gradually scan your body. Sometimes when you scan your body, you feel certain things and sense certain things that you don't see otherwise. You're busy with other external things. We don't notice the internal or physical things that we have. So as you just watch your body with stillness, with mindfulness, you begin to see many things. All in all, observe that stillness, which is the opposite of restlessness, the opposite of motion or moving. So you can see that the body is very quiet and still and there the way it is. Now if there are other members with you in the family sitting with you at home, be mindful of their presence, sitting with you, supporting your practice and having that mutual support. Be aware of that environment. There is someone with you. If not, just be aware of the surroundings and observe the stillness in that as well. observe that stillness. If you did notice any distractions, don't pay attention to them, just identify them and let it go. For example, the sounds of the clock or other family members moving, the sounds in the house or in the road. If they do take your attention, just notice them as sound, not even who is moving, what are they doing, but simply identify as hearing a sound. Don't even label it as a clock, or don't even label it as that person, this person, he, she. Simply hearing a sound. Similarly, when there is a bit of a pain or numbness in your leg, for example, don't say, oh, my leg is hurting. Simply, this is numbness. This is a feeling. And sometimes when you notice that this feeling is unbearable, and then there is this, or even an itchiness that is unbearable because you want to scratch it, don't scratch it, look at it. This is itchiness. In the still body, there is an attraction that the mind is wanting, so it has grasped this itchiness as an attraction object, so we have to identify it as itchiness. And then we let it go and then come back. So don't move your hand and scratch where it is itching. Then because we are yearning for some sensation, so therefore we want to itch. And when you actually train your mind to stay away from it or disconnect from it, then there is impatience developing in your mind. You might want to be mindful of that later on when you do this exercise. So these are the things that might happen, impatience building up. Even thinking, oh, my leg is hurting, when is this venerable going to hit the gong? I want to stand up. All this impatience and urges might arise in that few moments of sitting. So you don't do anything but just remember the 3 R's. Recognize, so identify what it is, release, let it go, return, come back to breathing. So now bring your attention to your breath and simply observe that breath. You can visualize the breath, breathing in, breathing out. For those who are completely new to this, you can use the counting method. Pinpoint the start of the in-breath as 1, the continuity 2, and then pinpoint the last minute or last moment that you finish the breath as 3. When you exhale, the same thing, 3, 2, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So stay with that movement of breath. Remember, breath is not meditation, it is just an object. So but stay with it to train your mind. Breathing in, breathing out. You can take the whole journey right through your nostrils to your lungs and then come out as well. And keep focusing on that. Long breath, long out breath, short in breath, short out breath if you notice. So just watch that breath, that movement of air as a whole, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. brings us to the close of today's session. So if you join weekly for this meditation session on mindfulness, do join us next Thursday as well. If you join us every day at 6:30 to participate in the religious observances, see you tomorrow. So thank you for joining us with us so far. We hope you have made the most out of today's session. So every day we go live at 6:30 with Buddha Puja, chanting, meditation and Dhamma reflection. So tomorrow we will continue with our Dhamma reflection from the Dhammapada Gatha, our verse series. So tomorrow we will start focusing on the chapter on fools or Balavagga. So thank you for joining us so far. Have a very nice evening. Stay safe. Okay, good night.